Okay, so I'm just going to talk you through the design cover of Around Australia 80Ks. So how we got to this point, and actually quite a lot of work went into getting this cover to look the way it does. So I'm going to start by showing you the original image. So this is the original image, unedited. This is how it was. And originally when I pitched the book, I pitched it with some mock designs of like what a chapter would look like, potentially what a cover could look like. And obviously I gave them a whole bunch of my photography because photography is such a huge part of the book. So this was the cover that I originally had in my pitch. So the book, it's so bad. So originally the book was called Etta's Travels Across Australia 80Ks, but eventually we ended up, once I got my publishing deal, we decided to go with Around Australia 80Ks because, you know, no one really understood who Etta was at the time. Like when you're browsing in the bookshop, you don't really understand who or what Etta is. And yeah, the tagline was a bit of a mouthful, so we changed that as well. So this was the original pitch, which obviously they thought there was potential there. But just going back to that original image, so this is what we started with. So the first, step is to edit the image. And so you get this. So it is warmed, so change the color balance, and I adjust the levels of Etta because Etta tends to come out to orange in digital photography. So she's made a little bit more yellow. Yeah, we've warmed up the tones, and I've done some things like I've brightened Bandit because Bandit is really quite dark. And unfortunately, Sean and I were wearing dark pants. And so he kind of blended in. You couldn't really see him. So he had a bit of dodging and burning done on him to bring certain areas out. You can see here he's howling. Woo! into the air. He was very excited. So yeah, a lot of work was done on him to bring him up because he wouldn't have printed well. If not, he would have just been like a black blob on the cover. And then little things like any nicks or bumps or lens spots were taken out. Just those kind of things. But one thing that we really had to change was this nullable writing. So I'll show you originally what it looks like here. So, oops, no, don't do that. So originally it was this dark. So that's way too dark because you have to think the title has to go somewhere and the title will be battling with the words on the roof. So what I did was I have a base layer here where I took out the words on the shed. And then I lay the original image back over the top, and then I do a layer mask just to soften it and take it down a bit so that the background is coming through so it's not as harsh. So that's really important. And then the next step was that we thought that it might need to be a little bit sunny. So it was a sort of partly cloudy day, pointing in this direction though, towards the shed, it was really cloudy. And you can see that we're in shade. So we couldn't make it a completely blue sky because that would just look completely unnatural because Sean and I are in shade, we are not in the sun. So I did a sky replacement. So here's the same image, but with the sky replacement. So the sky came from this image here, which I took down the road. So a couple of hours later, on the border of South Australia and WA. So you can see it's partly cloudy. So this is the kind of sky that will really work for that image. So I simply took it out and I did a sky replacement and added it into this image, and it worked really well. The next sort of step was, okay, well, we need way more space for the title. This is a 2:3 ratio image, but the book is much higher than that. So we needed more sky and we needed more sand. And also this light pole was very much a distracting element, and it would, not give us too many options with where we would place the title. So we got rid of it. So we extended the canvas and we extended the sky. So I did another sky replacement, same sky, just flipped it a different way, and just so it would kind of fit really beautifully. And you see you get a bit more blue over here on this side, but it still looks completely plausible and natural because the cloud is still there. And then yes, we have no light pole. So light pole, bye light pole, you're going, goodbye. And then we had to, yeah, extend the sand. So that's just because for the bleed. So this is the base layer for the cover. So then we needed to think about fonts, and there's Ziggy, my beetle. We needed to think about fonts. So the original idea was kind of something like this. So obviously this is the original image, but they were thinking something like this with the text, and it wasn't really working. Like, it didn't look slick enough. And yeah, I think the designer was struggling a little bit with ideas. So Sean kind of came in and decided to give it a go. So Sean's version is the version that we all know. So I'll just open Photoshop back up. So he designed this really nice title. So the scrolling text is Modish, the Modish font, and the Australia is Casablanca. And then he did like a nice dark drop shadow on the 80Ks. And that just really reminded us of like that Art Deco time and like the old Qantas ads, you know, from the 40s and 50s. So we thought that really suited not just the title, but sort of the vibe. So that's what we ended up going with. So Sean to the rescue there. And that is, and so originally you see here, the tagline is below the font, and we had a sort of white border around it. So we ditched that and we went with just a plain border around Australia, so no border at all. And we moved the tagline into a single line up above the main title. So that just was so much more balanced with the written photograph by Meredith Schofield. And then here we just the same title, but in white along the spine. And then this little Kombi icon here was designed by Sean. They're featured all throughout the book, and on the maps. Sean did all the maps as well. So we just wanted like people to see that there was a Kombi involved in the book if all they saw on the bookshelf was the spine. So the back image, this is actually not the blurb. This is the original blurb, but it's the same vibe. So originally this image is actually mirrored. So the original image is this one here. So this is looking east. So for it to sit properly with the spine and to have the words kind of the back blurb look, you know, kind of follow the line of the cliff face, we had to mirror it. And then one important thing that I had to keep in mind was that these two blues of the sky had to be similar. So originally this sky was actually a little bit magenta-y, too magenta-y like compared to this sky. So I had to add some cyan into it and a bit more yellow just so that it looked a bit better. And then we decided on, yeah, a nice dark blue kind of spine that matched this font. So it just, yeah, sat really nicely. So I think it looks really, really good. I mean, if you consider what we started with, so this is what we have, and that was what we started with. So you can see how in all the different steps, how the idea progresses and how you get to where you are. So there's like probably 10, 12 different versions of it as we're going. I only showed you about 5. So, you know, each time we would, you know, try and think of something different that we could do to make it everything stand out better. But, you know, I will say that like none of the images are in the book are manipulated like the cover is. The cover's manipulated on purpose. It's to make it, you know, attract the eye and to give more space for text and to fit the orientation of the actual book. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with where we ended up from where we started. So yeah, that's just a little bit of insight into how the concept and the idea of the cover, yeah, came about. So I hope you find that interesting.